Imagine a world where the lines between male and female roles are obvious. But there is also someone who not only breaks these rules, but also changes them with the accuracy of a sharpshooter. This is Annie Oakley, who was one of the first famous women in America and reflects this very essence. Oakley was a dancer in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show and a leader for women's rights. She was also famous for her legendary marksmanship. Annie Oakley had skills that were nothing short of amazing. Picture a scene where dimes are thrown into the air and are hit by a bullet from her gun. Or picture her riding a horse and shooting targets with uncanny accuracy while running with grace and control. People were amazed by Oakley's acts, which were full of skill and precision. They broke the mold of what women were thought to be able to do. Annie Oakley had a huge effect on people, and it wasn't just because of how well she shot. She was a strong supporter of giving women power through self-defense and shooting skills. Oakley spent a lot of her life teaching women how to use guns. At the time, this was a revolutionary way to give women a sense of freedom and safety. One bullet at a time, her work as an advocate gave women a way to become independent. The Wild West, a time often idealized for its roughness and frontier spirit, was the setting for Annie Oakley's rise to fame. With every shot she fired, Oakley broke the gender norms of the time. She not only entertained, but she also taught. And she used her fame to fight against gender roles that held women back. It was once possible for a young girl from a poor family to become famous through hard work and talent alone. Oakley's life story shows how to get through hard times. She went through a lot of hard times as a child. Born Phoebe Ann Mosey, she grew up in poverty and faced numerous hardships. It was hard for her, but she used them as learning opportunities and became the famous Annie Oakley. Her story from being a girl from a small town to becoming a star all over the world moves people deeply and gives them hope and courage. But if you thought Annie Oakley's story was incredible, then don't forget to subscribe because we have way more disturbing images in our camera roll. Now let's get to an even wilder shooter. Try picturing the rough territory of the Wild West. Their creativity and survival went hand in hand, making people as resourceful as the land itself. One of these people was Seth Kinman, a famous shooter and frontiersman whose name became linked to high-quality work. During a time when people had to come up with new ideas quickly, Kinman's skill stood out. He could turn wild materials into useful works of art. Kinman wasn't like other craftsmen. Wild animal parts he got on his hunts were his materials, which were the very core of the frontier. Imagine a man, rough like the land he wandered, making furniture with great care out of bear skins and elk horns. His work showed the wild spirit of the West and felt like a memory of a life lived on the edge of society. His works weren't just furniture. They were like wild animals brought to life by the skilled hands of a master. You've probably heard of President Andrew Johnson. He became president during one of the worst times in American history. But what about the strange gift he got that made him think of the American frontier? It was during a chance meeting that Kinman decided to present the president with a gift that fit a man of his size and the wild spirit of the West. Using elk horns and bearskin, he made a unique chair that looked like a throne. What was this? It wasn't just a piece of furniture. It was a statement about the wild and beautiful border. There were reports that President Johnson was delighted when Kinman gave him the chair. The old and beautiful chair was more than just a gift. It told a story and brought a piece of the country to the heart of Washington. It was a sign of how clever and creative the people of the Wild West were. They turned necessity into art and survival into something beautiful. Seth Kinman's creations became legendary, and some of the most important people in his time were given his works as gifts. Each one was a unique mix of function and art. His chairs, in particular, became famous symbols that showed both the rough style of the frontier and the creativity and energy of the people who lived there. These were not just seats. They were historical objects that showed how the American West was wild, untamed, and full of new ideas. But this is nothing compared to Wild Bill, a legend of the Wild West with a gunfighter's edge and a story that will leave you breathless. Let's go back in time. There is a thick haze of cigar smoke in the air, and you can see a dusty bar lit by oil lamps and filled with the noise of murmuring gamblers and the tinkling of a piano. A tall, intimidating figure stands out from the noise. He has two shiny guns slung low on his hips, and his eyes are as sharp as a Bowie knife. This is James Butler Hickok, who was better known as Wild Bill. His name echoes through the history of the American Wild West like the sound of thunder in the summer. You may have heard stories about his adventures that are kind of like history and kind of like legend. It's not enough to say that Wild Bill Hickok was a gunslinger. He was the live embodiment of the frontier spirit. His skill with a pair of Colt Navy revolvers was legendary, and every shot showed how deadly accurate he was and how fast he could draw the guns. Hickok played many parts in his life, such as buffalo hunter, stagecoach guide, and lawman. Each one added to his impressive reputation. Think about the fight in Springfield, Missouri in 1865. It will always be remembered as a legendary event in the Old West. It was tense when Hickok fought Davis Tutt, a rival whose name would only be known because he dared to go up against Wild Bill. The duel was over in seconds. Tutt was killed by a single shot, which was a stark reminder of how dangerous Hickok was. Not only was this a fight between two men, but it also sealed Hickok's reputation as the best gunslinger ever. And yet, behind the dangerous marksman was a man with a lot of depth and charm. The way Hickok charmed people was just as quick as his draw. He loved telling stories and could take over a room with just his presence, just like his guns could. His life, which was full of trouble and success, turned into a fabric with the threads of a huge number of stories, each stranger than the last. With his flowing hair and steely eyes, Wild Bill Hickok helped shape the idea of the Western hero as a tough, brave cowboy whose sense of right and wrong was as firm as the harsh land he traveled. This character, which is both true and made up over time, is a big part of American society and history. It makes sure that Hickok's legacy lives on. When Wild Bill Hickok's life ended tragically in a Deadwood saloon in 1876, his fame only grew. Like his life, his death was a dramatic ending that cemented his place in history. People are still fascinated by the sounds of his gunfights and the stories of his charm, which shows that he was both a myth and a real person. Wild Bill Hickok is still a legendary figure in the Wild West. He represents a time when gunfire and grit marked the difference between a hero and an outlaw. And that's the incredible story of Wild Bill Hickok, a legend whose life and legacy continue to captivate us today. If you enjoyed this dive into the Wild West, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.